Welcome everyone, Happy New Year. You are here to learn a NLP technique that will make a huge difference for you this year. And I'm here to walk you through each step by step. You are in for a real treat because this is an actual NLP training. We're going to do this. I highly suggest that you set aside anything else that you're doing. If you have other distractions going on, if you're checking your phone and you're checking texts or you're doing other stuff, you're not going to get out of this what you could get out of this. And this will truly make a difference for you this year. So that will be how you get the most out of this. So set aside whatever else you're doing. And if you're coming to this later, because I will keep this live up, save this for a time that you can do this all in one shot. You don't want to be distracted, putting it aside, coming back to it. It's just not going to work nearly as well. And if you're not willing to set aside the time to really put in the effort to this process, you might want to question what you're wanting to accomplish this year. Think about your goals, your resolutions. How important is it to you to make those things happen? If it's not important enough to you to set aside those distractions and really focus on doing this, you might want to rethink what those things are. And to tell you the truth, that's part of what we're going to be doing here on this live, is really assessing what it is that you're going after. So make sure you have a goal, a resolution, something you want different this year in 2024, different than 2023. There's a real opportunity here to make a true difference. We're going to go through an entire NLP process, and you might be thinking, what is that process, Damon? Why don't you just tell us what it is? And I will, of course. And some of you, because some of you have NLP training, or you've been doing a lot of NLP training off of YouTube videos, including mine, and if you are, I think that's awesome. Do more of that. Take advantage of everything I give to you here on YouTube. I love it when people leave comments and they say how much a process has made such a huge difference in their life. Once you hear what the process is, you might say, oh, I've heard of that before, or I've done that already. And then you might bounce off this video. This is a big mistake I see so many people doing in NLP trainings. They think, oh, I've done it. I've done that technique once, or I've done that process once. And they never do it again. And that's not how you get good at NLP. It's not how you get good at these processes. You want to do these processes over and over and over. The more you do them, the more you embody them, and you start to do them automatically. You start to train your mind to think in this particular way that brings you more success, more fulfillment. It gets to the point where sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you'll just think about what you want, and you'll just find yourself moving right toward it and doing it. NLP is a practice, and if you're unwilling to practice it, you're never going to truly learn it. You're never going to truly get the benefits from it. In the description of this video, there is a link, and what you'll find is the entire instructions for the process that I'm going to give you. Now again, some of you might be thinking, oh, I'll just grab that, I'll just go click that link and I'll get the PDF, and then I'll move on. I don't need to sit through this video. Okay, fine, you can absolutely do that. But there is a reason why we have NLP trainings. There's a reason why we have NLP teachers. Because most people, when they try to learn NLP from books or just off of videos without real-time interaction and real-time training and walking you through things, that's, again, people don't really learn this stuff. And the process that I'm going to show you, that you should already be downloading right now, is one that I didn't fully understand. I did it once or twice, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but I didn't really get the full benefit out of it. And it wasn't until I did it several more times, because I started to understand that that's how NLP works. So it wasn't until I had done it several more times, then I started to really understand how important this is, because it's not just enough to set a goal. And that's where most people stop. They set a goal and they think, okay, that's my goal and I'm going to go after it. And then a month or two into the new year, you're not anywhere closer to it, and you go, okay, well, I got plenty of time. I got the rest of the year to do this. And then it gets 3 or 4 months in, and you go, okay, well, I really should be getting a little closer to this. I need to really think about what I need to do. And then we're 9 months into the year, and that's where a lot of people just go, I don't even want to think about it anymore, because just thinking about it makes me feel bad that I haven't done anything about it. Let's change that right now, this very moment, by walking through this process. Now, another thing, if you're a part of the Ultimate NLP Practitioner training that I have, then I'll be going deeper into these topics with you in a special class. That class is called How to Make 2024 Your Best Year Yet, and it will be this week. You'll find the details about the class in the calendar. If you're not a part of the Ultimate NLP Practitioner community, you can find more information about that in the link, again, in the description of this video. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, there is that link there as well for the Ultimate NLP Practitioner training. That is the practitioner training that I created a few years ago. And what I wanted to do is I didn't want to just do any old NLP practitioner training. I had attended 3 NLP practitioner trainings with different teachers, and I also resource coached for other teachers. And I kept feeling like something was missing. Something wasn't complete in these practitioner trainings. And these were decently long trainings. These were like, the first one I went to was like 2.5 weeks long. The other one that I went to was like a week and a month for like 6 months. So these weren't like 3-day NLP practitioner trainings, which don't even waste your money on that stuff. That's not going to get you anywhere. So these were decently long trainings, and I still felt like something was missing. And I thought, okay, I want to do a practitioner training the way that they did it in the old days. In the old days, the early days, I should say. In the early days, the NLP trainings were 30 days long. And there was less technology then. So the technology has grown since then. And the trainings have shrunk. And the reasons the trainings have shrunk is for business reasons, for marketing purposes. Most people don't want to go through a long training. And my training, the Ultimate NLP Practitioner training, is based on a 24-day training. So people will look at that and they'll say, well, why would I go do the 24-day training when I can go do a 3-day training and I'll be a practitioner? You're not going to be a practitioner in 3 days. It's just not going to happen. It takes months. And when you have a go at your own pace training and a community to do that with, it makes all the difference. So if you really want to use NLP and you don't want to waste your time or your money, I highly recommend doing a comprehensive practitioner training. And that's why I taught the one that I taught, and it's available to you. Again, you'll find that in the description. All right, is everybody ready to do this? Are you ready to get started? All that it requires is that you have something that you want. You don't even have to have a goal just yet. So if you don't even have a goal just yet, you're okay. So have something ready. Let's see, I'm going to check my comments. I will be answering some questions. How long is the session going to be? I'm not even sure. Let's see. All right. All right, I see, yes, okay, awesome. I see plenty of people here have things that you want. All right, you came to the right place. I have tried your swish pattern, but you claim that I shouldn't do it more than 10 times for one compulsion. You only need to practice it 10 times. If it works, stop practicing. If you test it and it works, stop. It's better, it becomes more powerful when it becomes unconscious, okay? If it doesn't work, then you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what went wrong. So in that sense, you might need to practice it again, but you don't want to make it an ongoing practice like a daily thing or even a weekly thing. It's more powerful when it becomes unconscious. How long is the session going to be? All right. How important to you is it that you get what you want this year? Is that important enough to spend some time on that? Hopefully it is. I don't know how long this is going to be. We're going to go through it. So hopefully you've downloaded the PDF. And of course, the technique or the process we're going to use is called the well-formed outcome. You should have that in front of you. And if you like handwriting things, which I do, you want to have your pen and paper ready. If you prefer to do it on a tablet or a laptop or a computer, that's all good too. But you need to have something to write these things down. Okay, let's start. First thing is, like I said, you have to have something you want. You have to have an outcome. You have to have a goal, okay? The first thing is to make sure that it's stated in the positive, as in I want, rather than what you don't want. So often when I start coaching people one-on-one, and I say, and that's the first question I ask, what do you want? You came to me for coaching for a reason. What do you want? And what they'll do oftentimes is they'll tell me what they don't want. Well, I don't want to fail anymore. I don't want to quit my resolutions for New Year's. I don't want to disappoint myself. Okay, what do you want instead? We cannot move toward what you don't want. And the metaphor that I like to use is like going into a store. Imagine, I got a little variation on it than what I used to say. Imagine going to a grocery store and you need to pick up the stuff you need to bring home and cook food and everything. And instead of focusing on what you do want in the grocery store, you focus on all the things you don't want by saying, okay, you walk into the store and you go, okay, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. And you do that throughout the entire store until you find what you're looking for. How long would that take you? It would take you a very long time. Now, the one I usually use is I say, okay, imagine you go to a department store and the clerk walks up to you and says, can I help you with anything? And you say, yeah, I don't want socks. The clerk says, okay, fine, I won't show you any socks. What do you want? And you say, well, I don't want shirts. I'm not looking for shirts. Okay, the clerk's gonna say, I won't show you shirts. You're gonna be there all day. And just maybe through the process of elimination, you might find what you're looking for, but you might not. It's amazing to me how people approach what they want in life the same way, by only focusing on what they don't want. So make sure that what you want is stated in the positive, as in something you can actually move toward, okay? You can't move toward a negative. That should be super simple, super easy to get. And I know it's oversimplified what I'm saying, but you would be amazed at how often you probably do that, focusing on what you don't want, trying to focus on what you want to avoid rather than what you do want. You'll be amazed how many people actually are living their lives that way, which is probably why they're getting a lot of what they don't want. Second thing, make sure it's tangible, meaning it has to be something you can see, hear, and or touch so that you can measure whether or not you're moving closer to it or away from it. So you can say, I saw somebody in the chat put, I want healthy relationships. Okay, and that's an okay place to start, and it's stated in the positive, so you got the first part of that. How would you know it if you were having healthy relationships? And be specific, which relationships? Don't just say all of them, because you can't really focus on that. You can say my marriage, my relationship with my kids. It could be another family member, could be a coworker, could be your boss. And you're not limited to just one, but you want to focus on one at a time. Okay, so if you want healthy relationships, pick one. Again, I know you're going to feel like, oh, but I feel like I'm leaving all those other people out. No, you're not. We're working on one at a time. Okay, and this stuff will become much more clear, and then you can use what you learn here in this process to generalize it to those other relationships. You don't necessarily need to start all over and do the process for every single one of them. Sometimes that's a good idea, but not always necessary. Okay, tangible, meaning you can see it, you can hear it, or you can touch it, or maybe all three, or maybe two of the three. And that's how you're gonna know if you're getting closer or further away from it. So you might say, well, I want money. Okay, how much money do you want? And how are you going to know it when you have it, right? Do you see numbers in your bank account? Is it your paycheck goes up? Not many people use that much cash, but you could actually literally see the cash in front of you. Probably not that realistic though. All right. So it might take you a little while to do that because some people are more vague and they haven't really thought about the tangibles of this. Make sure you nail it down in something tangible. One other way to look at it is, could a third party verify that you did it, you got it, you achieved it? You want to travel the world. Okay, well, someone could actually see you doing that, right? And then you could have the stamps in your passport or the plane tickets, whatever. But someone could witness that happening, right? So that is tangible. So that, some people might say, well, how do I do that with an experience? Well, traveling the world is an experience, and it could be witnessed by someone else. So think about it that way. How could someone else verify that you have in fact gotten what you want? That's how we know it's tangible. Next thing, what is the context in which you want it? The where, the when, the how, and the with whom of your outcome. Now, the when, where, with whom, it might not apply to absolutely every person and every outcome. But as much as possible, you want to pin that down as to the context. The context could be your career. The context could be your health. The context could be your marriage. So the with whom is very easy there, the person you're married to, right? If it's your health, there could be a with whom, there might not be. A when do you want this? Do you want it in 2024? That works, that's fine. Do you want it sooner than December 2024? That's fine too. When do you want it? So it could be social life, career, intimate, relationship. Find out what the context is. So what we're doing, just to kind of I'll let some people catch up to this. What we're doing is building sort of the infrastructure around your goal and understanding it better. Because again, people set a goal as kind of like this idea that's just kind of floating in nowhere. And that's why you don't usually achieve it. And also for a lot of people, it's very fuzzy. And like Jason Fladlien, a very smart businessman, says, fuzzy targets don't get hit. So you need it tangible, you need to be specific about it. You've probably heard this before, SMART goals, right? And that's the start. And then you want to know, well, what is the specific context in which I want this? My health, my social life, my career, my marriage. This is very important. Okay. And then we go to intention, values, and meta outcomes. Now, if you've watched my videos, you know how much I go on and on about values. So, so important. And one of the problems when I used to do this process, when I would first learn it, they wouldn't take this very far. They would go, okay, what's important to you about having it? Okay, and then move on. I do recommend going deeper with this and really doing a full values elicitation. And that's easy to find on the selfconcept.com website or a lot of my videos. I highly recommend you check out my videos where I go on and on about values. Very, very important. The more you understand your values, and the more you also understand what values are healthy for you and what values are actually roadblocks, it's going to make achieving your goals so much easier, and you won't ever have to worry about motivation. Your values are motivation. So the more clear you are about them, the more connected you are to them because you know what is the value from the goal that you want, the easier this becomes. And again, we just think like, well, I want the goal. No, you don't. You want what that goal will do for you. The same thing with money. Like, do people like green paper? If you took $1 million and you brought it to an uncivilized tribe in South America, would they value that? Probably not any more than it could probably be used to set fires and they could cook food off of it. You need to know what the money will do for you. Very few people are motivated just by money. So when you look at your goal, and it's tangible now, you know what it is, it's stated in the positive, you know the context in which you want it. Ask yourself, what will having this goal, what will achieving it do for you? And if you're more focused in the resolutions part of this, same thing. When you do this, what will it do for you? What's important to you about it? And you can take that really, really deep. Most of the traditional well-formed outcome processes don't go very deep with this. And so they'll call it a meta outcome. Well, what will more money do for you? Oh, it'll give me more freedom. And then that's considered the meta outcome, and they usually just stop right there. Definitely want to take this deeper. So a meta outcome is technically a value. Your intention is a value. It's much easier to work in intention than it is to work on, I must do this thing, I must grind this thing out, I must push myself to go to the gym. Well, what is your intention behind going to the gym? What is important to you about going to the gym? Okay, make you healthier? Okay, great. And what's important about that? Live longer, spend more time with family, meta outcome. Okay, and what's important about that? More connection in your life, more peace. So you really need to find out what even inspired this goal. That's your intention. What inspired it? And go really deep with it. What do you value about it? What's important to you about it? What are you looking to fulfill by achieving this? All right. Now, once you have all that and it's clear to you, then we move to the how. A lot of people jump straight to the how. They go, okay, I want this goal. I have this goal. How am I going to do this? Okay, it's so much easier when you're clear about what the goal is, it's tangible, you know the context, and you know your values and your intentions driving it before you get to the how. Most people don't do that. They just jump straight to the how. And when you only have a goal and you only have a how, which is a strategy, and you haven't done the first part that we went through, people tend to cling to goals even when pursuing them makes them miserable, which should be a clear sign to you. When you achieve the goal, it's probably going to feel very empty. It's not going to be as fulfilling as you think it is. It's not going to be like the clouds part, the sun comes out, and everything is sunny and happy. If you're miserable along the way to it, don't expect to be suddenly happy and fulfilled once you get there. You might be relieved that it's over, because it's been making you miserable all this time, and you finally arrive and you go, oh, I don't have to do that stuff anymore. Or what happens is, if it's making you miserable, that's when you're likely to quit. And then that's when, unfortunately, so many people go into a spiral, a downward spiral, thinking, I'm not good enough, I didn't deserve it, I'm not worthy of achieving that goal, and none of that is true. None of that is true. The truth is you probably set the wrong goal, a goal that was not going to fulfill you, a goal that was probably driven by external values or pressure from family, from society, from your culture, peer pressure to feel important, status. It's okay to achieve those things. It's okay to please family members, but if that's why you're doing whatever goal or resolution or chasing whatever goal that you're going after, I can assure you, you're not going to get fulfillment out of that. And the people you may or may not please, if they are pleased, it's not going to last very long. They might even demand more of you because they're like, oh, okay, well, I can just demand that you do this thing and you're just going to step up and do it every time because you want to please me. You'll get people demanding more and more out of you, and you will feel more and more empty because you're not actually going after the values that are important to you. So make sure you are doing this for yourself. And some people might say, well, doesn't that make this very self-absorbed and I care about people and all that? Great that you care about people. And in fact, when you uncover some of these values, what you're probably going to find is values like compassion and sympathy and kindness. So that's all good for other people, right? That's not so self-absorbed. When you are fulfilled, you are better for other people. You are better for your family. You're better for your friends. And if people are getting jealous of you because you're achieving a lot and they're trying to push you down or they're being passive aggressive, that just lets you know it's time to find new friends. Or, and unfortunately, it is unfortunate this happens, sometimes family members do that. It's not worth it, they're toxic. Get away from them or spend as little time as possible. All right, everybody doing well? Okay. All right, good. So let's get to the how. Now, the other thing about the how, so how is like the strategy, right? What is your strategy for achieving this goal? And do you have more than one? And here's the thing, if you only have a goal and you don't do the other stuff that we've already gone through, if you only have a goal and then you come up with a strategy and that's all you have is a goal and a strategy, what will happen for a lot of people is they will cling to that strategy even when it's not working. Why? Because they feel lost without it. They feel lost without a goal, or if the goal is, as they're pursuing it, is making them miserable, they're afraid to quit the goal because they're told you can't quit. You got to move on. You got to do it. If you can't, you must. If you're miserable, there's, like I said, the goal is probably not going to fulfill you. Look for another goal and replace it. And when you know what your values are, that makes it a lot easier because you can say, okay, is this goal really aligning with my values? Or am I compromising myself? Or am I going against my values? So whatever's making you miserable, the reason it's probably making you miserable is you're probably violating one or more of your values. And the same is true for your strategy. So your strategy needs to align to the goal. The goal needs to align to your values. And sometimes strategies are not in alignment with your values either. So you need to get those in alignment as well. So what people will do, because all they have is a goal and all they have is a strategy, when the strategy is not working, they tend to cling to it because they feel lost without the strategy. But it's better to be lost than to actually be doing damage to yourself and making yourself miserable. That's not worth it. So throw out strategies. When you are clear about your values and you're grounded in your values and you're connected to your values, throwing out strategies is not a problem because you're not lost. Your values act as a compass pointing you in the right direction where you need to go. When a strategy is not working, throw it out, replace it, find a new one. It's not that scary. So it's good to have more than one strategy. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't take the first step if you only have one strategy. People look for all sorts of excuses to not take that first step or to not keep moving forward. And they'll say, oh, well, I need to figure this all out first. No, you don't. It's better to take that first step. It's better to keep moving and figure it out along the way. So yeah, you're going to have strategies that don't work. That's okay. Throw them out. Better to have one already ready to replace the one that's not working. So more than one strategy is better than one. Three strategies, yeah. And after that, I wouldn't try to get to 4 and 5 strategies, not necessary. You'll figure it out. As you move forward, as you're taking those steps, you're collecting more and more data about how to get to your goal. And you might realize that all 3 of your strategies were really, they were not correct at all. What you thought seemed like a good strategy in your mind conceptually doesn't work in the real world. So you throw them all out, you start all over again. There's nothing wrong with that. When it comes to the how, is it something that you can control, as in can you initiate it and keep it going, or do you need to depend on something else or someone else? This is a real important one because I've seen people all the time say, well, when my husband does this, or when my wife does this, or when I get that inheritance, or when the economy gets better. So what are you doing when you say things like that? You're taking the locus of control from yourself and putting it out there, and you're saying, I'm hopeless and helpless, and I must depend on someone else or something else to happen for me to move forward. Do not do that. Don't ever do that. What I like to tell people is I don't wait. Now you might say, well, that's crazy. What do you mean you don't wait? Like, if you're waiting for a plane and the plane's late, do you wait for the plane? Of course I do. Too many times. What I mean is, when there's something that you want, never ever wait. Waiting is a state of mind. And waiting is infinite. You can wait forever. And what I like to say is, it's really important to connect with your mortality. And this is where people go, oh, I can't listen to this. I can't hear this. Yes, connect with your mortality. That is your call to action. This life, your life, my life, everybody's life, will end at some point. When you're waiting, you are dying. well, technically we're all dying. Every single day we're getting closer to our end. If you're waiting, you're just dying. If you're moving forward, if you're acting in alignment with your goal and your strategy and you're doing something every day, well, now you're really living. Living is being engaged. Waiting is not living. You're putting everything on hold, but life doesn't go on hold. Time does not stop to wait for you to find the right time, to time the market, to when the economy gets better or when someone does something for you that's supposed to happen. Time doesn't stop for you to figure that out. So look at what you do have control over. We don't have control over everything, but that's okay. Look at what you do have control over and take that first step. That's what you need to focus on. What is in your control? And initiate. Focus on what you do have control over. Don't focus on all the stuff you don't have control over because it'll make you sick to your stomach. You'll realize, and it is true that we live in a chaotic world. And if you focus on that, your head will spin and you'll never get started. There are things within your control. Do those things. There's always things within your control when it comes to what it is you want. So what is that first step? What is that first step toward making this happen? Write it down. You need to know what that first step is. If you look at that first step and you say, oh, that's too big, I won't be able to do that now, or I'll have to wait until XYZ before I can take that first step, then it's not the first step. Take a smaller step. My business partner, Nate, always says that. You have all of the resources to take the first step. And if you don't, take a smaller step. There's always a smaller step that can be taken. So if you wrote down the first step and you looked at it and it felt really intimidating and you say, no, I can't do this, or I have to wait before I can do this, it's not the first step. So look at it again and ask yourself, what is a smaller step that you can take? Because you need to start now or tomorrow. Actually, you should have started yesterday. Maybe you did start yesterday, and if you did, that is awesome. And you've heard the saying about planting a tree, right? Best time was 10 years ago. Second best time is now. So get started now. What is it you can do today? I'll let you off the hook a little bit, maybe tomorrow. Wherever you're at right now, it might be a little too late. I'm actually in Romania right now. It's 10:30 at night, so to take a first step on something right now, if you're in Romania, might not be possible, but you can do it tomorrow, okay? No later than tomorrow. No later than tomorrow, you're going to take that first step. And if you say, well, I can't, it's not the first step. Take a smaller step. Okay, how are you going to measure your progress? You need to have a way to know that. You need to have a way to know, am I getting closer to what it is that I want? And how would I know it if I was actually moving further away? Or how would I know it if I was staying in the same place and not moving any closer or further away? That you need to know. So how do you measure it? If it's a monetary goal, very simple, right? You look at how much money you want to make, where are you at now, and divide it out like by days, weeks, or months, and have a way of measuring that. If it's your health, it could be your weight, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your blood pressure. There's all sorts of ways to measure if your health is getting better. Not just by the food you eat. That's your strategy. Eating healthy food, exercising, those are strategies. How are you going to measure that the strategies are working? I know a lot of people are afraid to get on the scale. I weigh myself multiple times a week just to make sure I'm staying at what I call my fighting weight. And sometimes I go over, but that's my course correction. I see that I gained a few pounds. Okay, I know that. I'm not making up stories in my head and saying, I don't need to step on the scale because I'm eating pretty good and I'm exercising pretty good. No. The reality is what the scale says. That is the truth. And that's what keeps me honest. So have a way to measure this. With relationships, that might be a little more difficult. But what you might want to say is, where do I want to be with a particular relationship by the end of the year? So there might be ways to measure that. Are you spending more time? Time is a measurement. Are you spending more time with that person? And there might be ways to measure the quality of that as well. Get creative. Think about it. Have a way to measure your progress. And another thing you want to focus on is, we go into this a lot in NLP, is resources. And it might get confusing when you start to learn about values and resources, and then even more when I teach self-concept model qualities, because they all share the same names. So you might say, well, what's the difference between a value and a resource? Well, a value is a generalization about an experience that's important to you. So, for example, happiness, I value happiness. It's an experience that's important to me. I've had happy experiences. That's how I know it's important to me. So that's a value. Kindness is a value. When I do kind things, I feel good about that. Therefore, I value it. Even when I see people do kind things, I get a warm and fuzzy feeling about that. Again, I value kindness. That's a value. Resources, like I said, that shares the same name, all the same names as values, but it's what's inside of us. That's always been there. You can cultivate and develop resources within yourself. They've always been there. Example, intelligence. You've always had intelligence. And people might say, well, no, I didn't have intelligence until I got to school and I started learning stuff. No, that's knowledge. You've always had intelligence. You've been learning since the day you were born. You learned a language without even trying. You learned to walk. You learned to tie your shoes. That requires intelligence. Now, over the years, your intelligence has been cultivated. It's evolved, but it was always there. Humor, playfulness, determination, happiness, peace. All these are values and they're internal resources. And you always have all of the resources you need within yourself. You're not always accessing them. That can be tricky. That's part of what NLP helps us do. NLP processes help us access resources within ourselves so that we can get what we want and experience fulfillment. So when you think about what it is that you want, what internal resources do you need to access in order to make that happen? Could be motivation. It could be creativity. Creativity is a wonderful resource. It also helps to be happy. It also helps to experience joy in what you're doing. Again, these are all resources. So what are the resources you're going to need to achieve what it is that you want? And a lot of times the way you can think about it is, when I achieve what I want, what do I believe I'm going to experience, right? Your values. So when you look at the values you've already elicited, chances are those are the resources you need to access within yourself in order to achieve what it is that you want. It's not always 100%, but that's a good place to start. There are at least clues to the resources you're going to need. Will you need any external resources like money or someone else's expertise or knowledge? Money is an external resource, and to start a business or to do certain things like travel the world, it often does take money. I don't know how you get around that without it. So do you need external resources like money? Do you need to delegate something to someone else who has the expertise to do it? Or maybe it's not even about delegating. Maybe it's just you don't know how to do something. You don't really care to know how to do it. So you need someone else who knows how to do it to help you do what it is that you want. So check in. Is there something like that you need? And of course, you want to put that into your strategy. If I need an external resource or multiple external resources, I need to build that into my strategy, how I'm going to get that. So it could be raising money. It could be somebody you know knows how to do something that you don't. You can ask them if they can help you out with it. Will you need to cultivate a skill? to accomplish this? Or do you already have the necessary skills? You might need to take a course. You might need to take a training. I remember when I embarked on my YouTube journey, I just started creating videos. I already had some of the resources within me. I had been to film school, so I knew how to shoot with a camera. I knew how to edit. So I had some things going for me. I had some skills and abilities that I had already cultivated, but I didn't know anything about YouTube as far as getting my videos viewed and the algorithm and all those things. So after 30 straight days of making 30 videos, and I got hardly any views and I got hardly any subscribers, I thought, I think there's people out there with knowledge about how to do this, and I don't have it, and I need to find out. Who knows what I need to know, and go find that out. And that could have been something, again, that I could have found someone who had that ability, but instead I really did want to learn it, so I learned it. So you want to decide on the things that you want to outsource as an external resource, or what are the things that you want to outsource as an external resource, and what are the things that you actually want to learn and that you need to learn, or skills that you need to cultivate. I had to learn how to talk to people. I had to learn how to talk to a camera. Never really done that before. So I had to cultivate that skill for these videos, and I'm doing that right now. I can't see all of you. I'm looking at a camera right now. That took a while. That took a while to cultivate, but I wanted to do it. It was interesting to me. So what are those skills that you're going to need to cultivate? Do you need to acquire knowledge? Do you need to take a course? All right, and then there's congruence. And this is super important. This is where oftentimes people discover that their original goal isn't what they really want. And that is a wonderful thing to find out now before you've invested too much time and money, if that's part of what you have to invest in this goal. Super important to figure that out ahead of time so you don't waste all that time and all that money. And you've probably done this before, I know I have, where you have chased a goal for years, especially if it made you miserable along the way. You invested a lot of time, you invested a lot of money, and you achieved it, and you get to that point and you go, this is it? This is what I've been chasing, and it's not fulfilling at all? It's because you chose the wrong goal, because you weren't truly congruent. That's where the misery comes from. The misery comes from not being congruent with the goal. Now, sometimes you're not congruent with a goal, and the resistance that you have can be integrated. Doesn't mean that the goal is necessarily bad. You can integrate resistance and have a parts integration PDF, much like this one, that will show you how to do that. We'll do a little bit of it here. So when you look at the goal, do you have any internal objections or resistance to achieving this goal? Now, a lot of times people have fear, and that is resistance. That's actually an objection. If you're afraid, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of disappointing yourself? Some people are afraid of succeeding because it'll bring a lot more attention to them. Or they're afraid of succeeding because they're afraid it might make other people who aren't succeeding at something similar look bad. Like if you're in a work environment and you succeed at something and you're friends with your coworkers, are they going to become jealous? Are they not going to like you now? Some people have a fear of that, and this is what we call objections or resistance. Overall, it's incongruence. I worked with someone who wanted to lose weight. He actually enjoyed eating healthy food. He actually enjoyed exercising. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I asked if he had any objections to losing weight, and he had never thought about it before, but it turned out he was afraid that he was going to lose his group of friends because all of his friends were overweight, they overate, and they drank too much. And I said, okay, is it worth it to you for your health to lose the weight and risk losing those people because they're not going to accept you anymore because you don't look like them anymore? And he had to think about it for a while. And then he said, yes, it is. I certainly hope that I don't lose those people. But if they judge me for that and they're not supportive of me and becoming healthier, I guess they probably weren't great friends. And I said, yeah, you're right. I didn't want to push him into seeing it that way. He found it himself, which I was happy he did. And when the first day he walked in around the group of people with his healthy food and not drinking, they looked at him a little funny and they said, okay, what's going on? And he told them, and they supported him on it. And so I told him, I said, it sounds like you have some really good friends. There was a story that one of my teachers told me about a woman who kept losing weight and kept putting it back on. So she obviously knew how to lose the weight. And she came to him saying, well, I want to keep the weight off. And after diving deeper into this, they realized that she had a congruence issue with that. That's why she kept putting it back on. And the resistance was that every time she lost weight, other men started to look at her, and that made her husband jealous. And she loved her husband very much, and she didn't want to get a divorce, and she didn't want trouble with her husband. So now she knew what the problem was, and she went to her husband and worked the whole thing out. So sometimes you got to examine those relationships. Now, there is a difference between congruence and ecology, and ecology comes a little bit later. Congruence is more of your internal stuff, your internal resistance, your internal objections. So it's less about what other people will think. It's more about, when I do this, do I feel like I'm losing something else? Or do I feel like I'm violating some other value? Does it feel like I'm going against something I believe about myself to be true? And most people, this is very unconscious. So that's why it's good to sit with this and ask yourself those questions. So you want to get to what the positive intention of the resistance is. So I want to, let's say, I have a goal about starting a business. And of course I want to succeed, and that's a value. And the more I think about it, the more I go, ooh, yeah, I do have an internal objection. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. And if I fail, then I'm going to feel like my worth goes down. Now, there's no such thing as self-worth. And I've done lots of videos on that. There's no way to measure your worth. But a lot of times people feel like, well, if I just don't do anything, then I won't sacrifice my worth. But if I do something, if I try to succeed at something and I fail, then I'm going to feel unworthy, I'm going to feel not good enough, it's going to feel like my self-worth will go down. That's what I'm risking. Okay, what is the positive intention of that feeling? What is the positive intention of that fear? And a lot of people say, well, there's no positive intention. Well, there is. And this is where you have to go a little bit deeper and get into your unconscious and say, and actually what I do is I actually talk to my resistant parts. You want to welcome them. You want to accept them. They're a part of you, and all parts of you are valid. A lot of times I've had people come to me and say, I've got this resistance, this fear, or whatever it is, and it just sabotages me. I engage in a lot of self-sabotage. There's something inside of me that just keeps sabotaging me. Can you hypnotize me and just make it go away? Or I want to crush this thing. And I say, this is a part of you. And it's a part of you that is actually trying to do something positive for you. It's trying to fulfill a value. It's trying to fulfill an intention. Intention and value are the same thing. So you need to know what that is. So a fear of failure, oftentimes the positive intention there is it wants you to succeed. The part it wants you to succeed. A lot of this stuff is deeply embedded from negative experiences we've had, especially when we're kids. So let's say I need to go and give a talk in front of a group of people. It's for my job, and it scares me so much. And maybe you want to do it. Maybe actually you're kind of like, yeah, I'd like to be a good speaker, a good public speaker. But every time you think about doing that, you get this tremendous fear. And then you go a little bit deeper and you welcome that part, you don't push it away, you don't resist resistance, that's what that is. You now say, okay, What are you trying to tell me? Like, talk to yourself. What are you trying to tell me? What's going on? And then the part might say, well, I don't want you to fail. And you need to get this switched to the positive. Okay, if you don't want me to fail, what do you want from me instead? And the part might say, well, I want you to succeed. And then you could say, okay, great. That works really well with what I want too. What's going on? What's the problem? And when we dive deeply into these things, we'll often get very old memories of painful experiences. Some of them, or probably even most of them, you've completely forgotten them. So for example, maybe when you were a kid, part of one of your classes is you had to deliver a presentation. Maybe it was history class, and you had to deliver a presentation on a certain topic. You got up in front of the class, and you botched it, and all the kids laughed at you, and it felt so embarrassing and painful. Well, what happened there probably, and this probably didn't even happen consciously, you said to yourself, I don't ever want to experience that ever again. And so you gave orders to a part of yourself to make sure that you never experience that again. And so that part of you got disconnected from the rest of you. It fell deeply into your unconscious, but it's still carrying out its mission that you gave it. So years and years later, when you go to do presentations, that part of you is saying, I'm not gonna let you do that. You gave me a mission, you told me not to let you fail. You told me never to let you experience that again, and so I'm doing my job. So oftentimes it's just about updating these old programs, updating these old parts, and letting it know, okay, times have changed, I'm older, and that's not the way to go about this. The way to move on this is to move forward. So how will you use your positive intent to help you achieve this goal congruently? So you want to take that positive intention of your resistance and integrate it into what it is that you're doing, into what it is you want to achieve. So like I said, when you go to the level of intention or values, integration is so much easier. So it's so much easier when the part that is resistant and objecting because it doesn't want you to fail, once you can connect with, well, what does it want instead? Well, it wants you to succeed. You go, okay, well, yeah, I want to succeed in this thing that I want to achieve. That goes together quite well. What I will do then is, especially when I'm working with people, I'll say, would that part like to have a role in your success? And the person will ask the part, and of course that part wants a role. That's all this part has ever wanted, is to come back home, to rejoin the rest of you, to be integrated into the rest of you. I've had people break down into tears when this has happened because they're finally making that connection back again, and they feel whole again because they've been separated from this part of themselves for so long. The separation was an illusion, but it still felt real. And people will feel whole again, which does what? Helps them so much more in succeeding. How much easier do you think it is to succeed when you feel whole and fulfilled? So much easier. When you're able to connect with yourself and connect with those resources that was in that part of you that was isolated, so much easier to achieve what you want rather than fighting yourself. And this is why I don't believe in willpower and discipline, because both of those things imply that you have to fight yourself to get what you want. If you're fighting yourself to get what you want, you've already started off in the wrong direction. Why do that to yourself? Why make it so hard on yourself? There's no reason for it. Find out what's going on. If you feel incongruent about your goal, find out what that's about. It is driven by a positive intention. You just need to find out what it is and then incorporate it into what it is that you want to achieve. Okay, ecology has more to do with the other examples that I gave. How does this affect things externally? So if you think of like an ecosystem. In an ecosystem, it's a little bit delicate. There's a balance there. Certain animals eat other animals, those animals eat vegetation, and there's this circle of life, right? Well, what happens when you introduce something new into that? Sometimes it throws that balance off. And so there, again, you're sensitive to that. You can think of ecology as external congruence, or you can think of ecology or congruence, you can think of as internal ecology. So is this going to throw anything off externally in your life that's negative? Or is there, I heard the saying, there's not many solutions in life. There's mainly trade-offs. There's opportunity costs. You put your attention here, well then you're not putting your attention there, and that means you're missing out on that there. Okay, is that okay with you? You want to make this stuff conscious so you can make a conscious choice about it. So for the woman who wanted to lose weight, is it okay for, does she want to lose weight and be healthy that much that it makes her husband jealous and she's just going to have to accept that? Is there a way around this? Can she talk it out with her husband? If you're going for a job promotion and that's going to throw off relationships with your coworkers because now you're going to be in a position of authority, are you willing to risk that? Is there something you can do about that? Can you go talk to your colleagues and say, hey, can we still be friends and work this out? Maybe do it ahead of time. So how might achieving this goal affect important relationships, positive or negatively? So you want to take some time to consider this. Does this throw off any systems in your life? If you don't make this conscious and you don't make conscious choices around this, you're leaving it up to your unconscious. And your unconscious might decide, no, we're not going to do it. Or we're going to put up a lot of resistance, which is just going to make you work harder and waste more time, waste more effort. And you definitely don't want to do that. There's no point in doing that. So if there are any negative effects, what might you need to do differently so this doesn't happen? Can you head this off? Can you anticipate this and do something to make it not have the negative effects? Or are you just willing to accept that there might be some negative effects to this? That might just be something you have to accept. And if you're not, then again, you might want to choose a different goal. So how might achieving this goal affect other external systems, contexts, relationships that are important to you? You want to make sure that you really flesh this out. Because if you overlook any of this stuff, and again, you leave it up to your unconscious, not a good idea. It's not going to always work out that. You're just going to spin your wheels and it's just going to burn you out. There's just no point in doing that. And again, it might also indicate that this isn't the right goal for you. All right. So how was that? That's the well-formed outcome. It's not hard. It's pretty simple. Very, very important, though, that you get all these things out on the table. That's what NLP is all about, going into the unconscious, pulling it all out into consciousness so that now you can have conscious choices about it. There's a lot of programs running inside of you. And if you're not conscious of them, those programs are going to run you instead of the other way around. All right, looks like we're right at the hour. That hour went by really fast. I love talking about this stuff. So I hope you get a lot out of that. If so, let me know in the comments. I love to give this stuff out, spread it out to as many people as possible so that you can utilize it, leverage it, and get what you want out of life. It makes my day to see people using this stuff and getting what they want. Okay, take care everybody. Happy New Year. I hope it's the best year of your life and you get everything that you want. Take care.